I had a discussion with a potential seller a couple of days ago, and one of the questions that he had for me was, what's the difference between a business broker and a merger and acquisition advisor? We had a good conversation about it, and there is a significant difference between those two business practices. Although they both deal with businesses, the size and scope and complexity of what they deal with varies. So if you're a potential seller thinking about selling and are starting the process of selecting either a business broker or a merger and acquisition advisor, stick around because this video might help you go one way or the other. As always, if you've got a question as I go through this presentation, just leave it in the comment section below or send me an email, or even better yet, give me a call and we can discuss what's ever on your mind. If you get something out of this presentation, please hit that like and subscribe button. And with that, let's talk about business brokers versus merger and acquisition advisors. Now first, both deal with business owners of privately held businesses. But the size and the complexity is what separates them. First, let's review what a business broker at its core does. Traditionally, business brokers sell what are known as Main Street businesses, which are retail businesses for the most part, with revenues less than $3 to $5 million and can range all the way down to $100,000 in revenue. Now, business brokers, the good ones that I know, are experienced in their niche and really do bring a certain level of advisors and lenders to the table to help and facilitate the transaction. Deal structures are usually asset sales, which are straightforward, easy to understand, negotiate, and for attorneys that are involved in drafting the purchase and sale agreement are pretty straightforward as far as where the risk lies between the buyer and the seller and what's being transferred in that business. In addition, business brokers usually are looking at what's called a seller's discretionary earnings, or an SDE, to establish the base price for the business. Now, an SDE, we've done other videos on this, is really the earnings of the business plus personal perks that the business owner has, their wages, interest and depreciation, and one-time business or non-reoccurring business expenses. And that establishes a cash flow that then is multiples applied to establish the price or the enterprise value of that business. In addition, the process that a business broker uses is fairly abbreviated as compared to a merger and acquisition advisor. They're going to put together a 5 to 10 page marketing brochure that highlights the basic strengths and outlines the business as it exists. They'll establish a price and put that in the brochure. They may establish a limited data room to back up any of the information that they've put together in that 5 to 10 page brochure. And they market usually through a list of some of their own contacts, but traditionally they use internet-based websites like BizBuySell and buyabusiness.com. So in a nutshell, business brokers handle that revenue businesses between that 3 million and on down, retail in the marketplace. And they do a fairly good job and serve a really good niche. A merger and acquisition advisor deals with privately held companies with revenues between $5 and $100 million. And they're experienced in dealing with very complex transactions and deal structures that often include a stock sale. The deal structures may include things like F reorganization, an equity rollover, the use of a 338H10. the dealing with in due diligence of a quality of earnings report, and tax plannings on behalf of both the buyer and the seller at some point. They use EBITDA versus SDE to establish an enterprise value and that cash flow. Their access to the buyer pools is what starts to separate them as well, in that they've got a fairly robust financial buyer pool. They can establish and market to strategic buyers, private equity, portfolio, and family offices that they've dealt with in past, and can identify that they have businesses that may be in that segment, and this could actually be an add-on to one of their portfolio companies. The process of taking a business to market also differentiates between a business broker and a merger and acquisition advisor. With a merger and acquisition advisor, there is a lot of upfront work to prepare that business to go to market. And it starts with putting together a business valuation, looking at a potential deal structure and net equity or proceeds of the sale for tax planning purposes. The second piece is really around putting together a robust confidential offering memorandum that's probably anywhere between 50 and 80 pages long and goes into in-depth analysis on the business, its current state, future state, SWOT analysis, product, services, financial analysis, and much more. To back that up, the M&A advisor will be putting together a very robust data room. So all of the data that was used to establish the offering memorandum will be put in a data room and organized in such a fashion that it'll help any buyer with pre-LOI and post-LOI due diligence, and really allows the offering memorandum to build a lot of credibility because that data is there. They're not having to look for it, they can back it up. So in identifying those potential buyers and then running what's called a controlled auction, an M&A advisor will identify buyers or pools of buyers and then put together what's called a request for proposal. So they'll go out to that marketplace that they've identified and request a proposal from potential buyers, and then manage that process as it comes in, and they'll evaluate the buyers and the transactional structures. And usually in a controlled auction that I've run, at least, you get 5 to 10 buyers coming to the table simultaneously, and a good M&A advisor is skilled in negotiating with all 10 of those simultaneously while keeping the seller totally appraised. And part of that process, it allows the seller to take a look at each individual potential buyer and their potential deal structures. Now, I will say, and something I've always talked about with my potential sellers, is no buyer or deal structures are ever created the same. You could have the value of the business at, say, 20 million between 3 potential buyers, but the deal structure underneath and the buyer, the characteristics of the buyer and the quality of the buyers could be very different. And I've had transactions where sellers have taken not the highest offer, but the best buyer for their business to hand over and continue their legacy. So that's one of the big differentiations between a business broker and an M&A advisor, is the ability to organize and run a controlled auction. The other thing that an M&A advisor is going to do is they're going to walk you through, or they're going to walk the buyer through managing due diligence. So again, this goes back to that data room, being able to communicate effectively on what's needed, what issues arise out of that data room, and what additional data needs to be put in there. And then negotiating the purchase and sale agreement. Most M&A advisors are pretty hands-on in working with both the buyer and the seller's attorney and the seller with regards to the structure, the deal points in a complex purchase and sale agreement and helping resolve any outstanding issues that the attorneys may not be able to resolve. And then finally, managing and assisting in pre and post-closing integration, planning, and support, which is really important for a successful sale, merger, and moving that company forward with handing the legacy of that company over to a new buyer. So the differences between merger and acquisition and business broker. The CBB Group is a merger and acquisition advisory service that services businesses between $50 million and $1 million in revenue. So really, we're a little bit of a hybrid between a business broker and a merger and acquisition advisor, in that we take the best practices out of merger and acquisition advisory down to revenue, businesses with revenues of $1 million. Now, we service the markets in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Northern California. And our services include dealing with sellers, buyers. We are a certified business valuation firm. We offer exit planning and consulting. So I hope you learned a little bit more about the differences between merger and acquisition advisor, business brokers, and who the CBB Group is and who we serve. If you've got any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below, or simply give me an email or call me. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you on the next episode.